I pledge allegiance to this flag. And if that bothers you, well, that's too bad.
Common Sense Radio. I'm your host, Lana Ford. Thank you so much for joining me on this cold but yet beautiful day, November 23rd, in Colorado Springs. In studio today, we have District Attorney Ken Buck from Weld County in studio with us. He's also running for U.S. Senate, and we're so glad to have you, Ken.
Thank you, Lana. It's great to be here.
Great. And then we also have your beautiful wife.
My better half.
Gosh, she is a beautiful woman. And you know what? Perry is one of the most conservative women in our state legislature. Perry, we're so grateful to have you up there fighting for us every day.
Well,
and
it's a pleasure to be here, Lana. It's quite an honor to be on this radio station with you.
You are such a inspiration to many women. You're the former president of the Colorado Federation of Republican Women. You have fought for us in the state, and of course, now that you won in District 49, and you represent all of us in the whole state, not just your district. And so we just appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. That. And then we have Dr. Mary. Dr. Mary is coming on with us in a little bit. She's going to be talking about Obamacare and how it's affecting us in our state today, especially with our firewall with SB 11200, which I'm going to keep pouncing on. And we'll have Dr. Mary talking about that, and our very own Kanda. Kanda's in studio, of course, with Kanda's Corner. And so, Kanda, what do you have up for us today?
Well, I am going to be talking about Thanksgiving and what we should be celebrating.
Funny you should say that, because Ann Vanola, who is our editor-in-chief at Common Sense News, wrote an amazing article this issue. By the way, I just picked up some newspapers today. We came off the press late last night. They were inserting late last night. So I went over and picked up some. And she has an amazing article. It's called, "Excuse Me, Who Are We Supposed to Thank in This Holiday Season?" And where, of course, the front cover is going to make a lot of people kind of go crazy with what we're doing. We're not calling it Season's Greetings. We're not calling it Happy Winter Party or anything else. It's Merry Christmas. We're calling it like it is, and which is Christmas is coming up. So, U.S. Senate candidate, Mr. Ken Buck.
Lana.
Well, welcome to the show.
So cool.
This is great. You know what? What made you decide to run for U.S. Senate?
Lana, there have been so many life experiences that I have had in the last couple of years. And Perry and I did a lot of praying, and we came to the conclusion that this was the right job to go for. If there is one body that is truly taking this country down the wrong path, it is the United States Senate. And if there is one state that is misrepresented more than any other state in this country, I believe it's Colorado. And I'm going to do my very best to get Mark Udall out of office and make sure that we have some common sense, principled leadership in the United States Senate.
Well, I'm so glad that you have decided to do that. Udall is a big problem for Colorado. You know, he was the cheerleader for Obama, pushing his Obamacare in this state. And now what is he wanting to do? Now he's wanting to push back and say, oh no, let's relook at everything. And, you know, I thought you were the biggest cheerleader for Obama.
And it's so consistent with what he's done. He's voted for every big spending bill that has been there since he got to Congress in 1998. And then he half-heartedly offers up a balanced budget amendment, knowing that it will go nowhere, but he can come back to the state and say, I've been a conservative. You see this? He has been on the Senate Intelligence Committee overseeing the NSA. And as soon as the scandal breaks, not before, but as soon as the scandal breaks, then he says, oh, look at this. we've got to rein in the NSA. Anytime he gets caught in bad political decisions, he tries to cover up with some flimsy piece of legislation. And this Obamacare is no different. He promised people they could keep their insurance policy, they could keep their doctor, and it wasn't true.
Nope, it wasn't true. And so, you know, I want to talk a little bit about personally what you've been through in the last few years. You overcame cancer.
Yes. And
that's something, and you look so amazing. I mean, you look strong, you look healthy.
I have a face for radio.
Yes, you No, I just said that getting out of the car. I said, thank God I get on the radio because I don't have to wear makeup. No, but Ken, you look absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
You look fresh. You look happy. You look ready to take on Colorado and really, really bring us back to our conservative values.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was truly a God thing. I had stage 4 lymphoma cancer. I had tumors in my neck, under my arm, on my spleen, 8 different bones in my body. And with a lot of prayer and a great wife and family by my side and good doctors, I was able to get through in just 3 chemos. After 3 chemos, I had a PET scan, 42 days, and there was no trace of cancer in my body. And it is truly a God is great thing.
And he has bigger things for you.
He does, and I got to tell you something, Lana. It comes at a time when healthcare in this country is a major issue, and if it doesn't say something, I don't know in 5 years whether I would have survived. Could I choose my own doctor? Would I have the same type of medical care if we go forward with Obamacare? It is just a message and a mission for me.
Well, just praise God for that. I mean, I remember when you were going through it and we all prayed hard for your fast recovery.
Thank you.
And then for you to be 100% cancer free, no trace of it, is unbelievable. It was all over you and now it's just gone. So God has better plans for you. And
it's being on your show.
That's exactly.
What could be better than this?
I know. So Perry, tell me about you and the state and what you're doing up there.
Well, I just want to say a few words in regards to what Ken went through. I think Ken, as a prosecutor, has probably seen the worst of people. Every day, it's amazing some of the stories that I hear of what he sees of the human race. And when he went through that cancer, I think to see the cards and the flowers and people bringing food, it was a wonderful opportunity to see just the kindness of people. And I think it's changed Ken in more ways than one than the recovery from the cancer, but just to see the warmth and the loving kindness of so many people. And so I'm just so happy that he is past the worst of the cancer. Just so grateful.
What a loving wife.
Oh, it's great.
She's wonderful. And she's a friend and a loving wife to many. I mean, not wife, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly
loving
what you
wife
meant.
to you.
Yeah, right.
What would you do different this time than your last time?
Are you talking about campaigning?
Yes.
I'll tell you, we have to define who Ken Buck is this time. What happened last time was we got into a primary battle. We ended the primary with very few resources. We started building up for the general election. The Democrats came in with a ton of money and got to define who Ken Buck was. And they started this war on women nonsense. And we are going to start letting people know who Ken Buck is at a very early stage. And I have worked very hard to defend women, to defend others in the prosecutor's office, U.S. Attorney's office, and the District Attorney's office, and the ability to work with the community to prevent crime, to help juveniles, to help victims is something that didn't get out last time that has to get out this time. People have to understand the heart of Ken Buck and not just the definition that the Democrats want to put on me.
Well, that's exactly right. It's an argument that I fight for with the Republican Party. If we don't identify who we are, if we don't say what we are as Republicans, we're defined. We're actually, the Democrats define who we are.
Exactly.
And I'm not okay with that.
Exactly.
And Perry, you mentioned, that your husband is a prosecutor. And I often hear Republicans mention rule of law, and that's kind of their focal point. And then I hear libertarians and some of the conservatives in the Republican Party talking about civil liberties. So Ken, as a sitting district attorney, I'm sure both of these principles come into play. So how do you prioritize which one is of more importance when advocating for a policy or a law change? And can you give an example of a scenario where you have had to consider both and how you handled it?
Well, I could tell you the rule book is the Constitution. And it's really simple. You look at the Constitution and you apply constitutional principles. And sometimes the legislature oversteps its bounds and you can't apply the law the way the legislature has written the law. And you have to strictly construe the Constitution. And I'll give you a perfect example. This last legislative session, Perry voted against the gun bill that limited the transfer of firearms. We had flooding in northern Colorado, and people were flooded out of their homes and had to move their property. And some of that property were firearms. And so if they had to transfer a firearm to a neighbor's house or transfer a firearm to a relative's house, they would have to, under the law, have done a background check in order to transfer that property. And I sent a letter out to all the police chiefs in Weld County, and I said, I will not prosecute a case that is brought to the district attorney's office where a victim of the floods had to transfer a firearm and didn't do a background check. That is not what the law intends. That's not what the Constitution intends. And I am going to follow the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of Colorado, before we allow the legislature to run roughshod over our Constitution.
That's perfect.
I think that's great. And it needs to happen. We need that constitutional pushback. With the recent U.S. Senate rule change, which is known as the nuclear option, which I think tells you how bad it is. This is a rule that's been in existence for 2 centuries. It's going to basically make it easier and expedite the process of getting activist judges into our court system. So as such, of course, we're going to need to elect U.S. senators who constitutionally represent the people of this nation. And how do you feel about this whole rule change, and how would you deal with it if you were a U.S. senator?
Well, you missed one very important point, Kanda. Mm-hmm. Both Senator Udall and Senator Bennett voted for the nuclear option. They voted to do away with 200 years of American history. They voted to do away with the Senate being the brake on the House and having a filibuster, needing a majority, more than just a simple majority, to pass legislation. And it is necessary to have a deliberative body that, in my view, less government is better government. And by having 2 groups in Congress, the House and the Senate, that can push legislation through without any brake on it is a bad thing. And especially when one party has the majority, as they do in the Senate, they're going to try to push things through with their with the president's nominations, and that has got to stop. And I just think Udall and Bennett are absolutely wrong on that.
I agree.
I agree totally. Well, we're going to come back with Ken Buck, U.S. Senate candidate Ken Buck, and Perry Buck, Representative Perry Buck. We're going to be back in just a little bit, and we're going to go to a break right now, so thanks.
No one's ever gonna keep me down again. Whoa, yes, I'm wise, but it's wisdom for the pain. Yes, I paid the price, but look how much
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
Every once in a while, I run into one of you who tells me they love the Health Freedom Minute. I'd love your feedback. Just go to our website's homepage and click on Give Feedback. It's great to know that real people are really listening. So today or the next time you go to our website to listen or to download one of our alerts, please take the time to tell me what you think of the Health Freedom Minute. And while you're there, go to the very top of the homepage and sign up for the CCH Freedom e-news. People subscribe from all over the nation. It comes out weekly and always includes a commentary from me and the news we don't want you to miss. I'd love to have you as a reader. Thanks again for listening.
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly e-news update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
And his heart belongs to that sweet little beautiful, wonderful, perfect all-American love.
That was an amazing minute that we're actually using from Dr. Mary. Dr. Mary is in studio with us. And Dr. Mary, can you explain what that minute was every single time we're going to be running that in every segment?
Thank you so much, Lana. It's going to be the Health Freedom Minute. And it's with the Citizens Council for Health Freedom. It is the national organization that is standing against Obamacare and for patient health and patient freedom.
We're having some technical difficulties, I think. Scott, are we on the air? Yeah, we're on the air. We just can't hear ourselves right now. So I apologize, but thank you so much, Dr. Mary, for doing that. And we're going to be playing those every single segment because that's so important that people understand.
Thank you so much, Lana.
And we're also going to, well, since we have U.S. Senate candidate Ken Buck in studio with us, tell us about Obamacare. What do you envision? How do you see, like Ted Cruz? For what he did during that filibuster, you know that I'm just this political junkie. When I came home that night, got in my PJs, popped some popcorn, and actually watched the filibuster. This is a man who stood up for us.
Do you like green eggs and ham?
I do.
Yeah, I do too.
I do. So he stood there and he took that for 21 hours. What would you have done as U.S. as representing Colorado?
I don't know that I have the bladder control to stand there for 21 hours and do what Ted Cruz did. I respect the heck out of the guy for doing that.
That's why we have Depends.
I might last 18, but I don't know about 21 hours. But that was absolutely incredible, and I respect what he did. And I have to tell you something, Lana. The liberal media has blamed the Republican Party for shutting down government, and that's an absolute lie. The president shut down the government. Harry Reid shut down the government. The Republican Party in the House continued to send budget bills to the Senate, and they ignored those budget bills. If they wanted to keep the government open, they could have passed those budget bills and kept the government open. And for them to have twisted a principled position on defunding Obamacare and delaying Obamacare. Now, the Democrats, Senator Udall has asked for a delay in Obamacare. They blame us for shutting down government, and then they ask for the very things that we were asking for, that they blame us for shutting down government. It's just absolutely crazy.
Well, my heart and where I stand on Honor Flight.
You have a big heart.
I do.
Yeah.
And, Honor Flight of Southern Colorado, something near and dear to my heart. Being that we fly the World War II veterans to D.C., we had just come back. We had come back about 2 weeks before that whole government shutdown. And I would have said, you know what, if they would have shut down and put those little barricades up, how cute. When I was there, I'd be in jail because I don't care. This to me was insane. This is an open, it didn't take any manpower to keep these things open, but they want to use it as pawns and use our World War II veterans as such as well. These are guys that took down Hitler and stormed the beaches of Normandy, and you're going to put up some barricades and think, oh, that's just so cute. Really? So I had a really big problem with that one.
So Ken, you see yourself caucusing with the likes of Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, or do you have other plans? How do you see yourself if you got to the U.S. Senate?
Candace, let's go back a few years. Senator Jim DeMint supported me when I ran for the Senate in 2010. He supported Rand Paul. He supported Mike Lee. He supported Ted Cruz in the 2012 election cycle. And I see myself as a conservative in the United States Senate. I will work with others. Now, to me, the Senate is fairly fractured on the Republican caucus. On some instances, I am going to be with Marco Rubio on conservative issues. In some instances, I'm not going to be with Marco Rubio on the Group of 8 immigration plan, for example. But I can see that caucus of conservatives being even broader than just the 3 or 4 that you mentioned, and trying to work with a much broader group on conservative issues, particularly if we get the majority. If we get the majority, I think there's a very good chance that we could push a conservative agenda, get back to free market principles. You asked about Obamacare. That's exactly what we need to do with health care in this country, is get away from a top-down solution, get back to a patient-centered health care plan.
Well, it's about health care versus health insurance. It's two separate things. And they're trying to make it into one. And it's not. It's two different things. It's health insurance. It's mandating health insurance versus good health care.
Exactly. Lana, this is completely forgotten about the patient. And I so honor what Ken Buck just stated. It is about the patient, and they have completely forgotten about the patient. There's no quality left in what they're delivering. I read stories today of people that have lost their benefits. They got letters. They have pre-existing conditions. They are not going to be able to afford insurance, and there's no focus. Where is the compassion of this administration? We've heard so much about the uninsured. Where is the compassion of this current administration for all these hardworking Americans? with pre-existing conditions, with cancer, that are not going to be able to get coverage. It's like a whole society is being thrown under the bus.
Now, Dr. Mary, what about, okay, so in Colorado, though, we had a state exchange. We have a state exchange, SB 11200, which was supposed to be the firewall. It was supposed to protect Coloradoans. That's why we did it. And the sponsor was Amy Stevens, Representative Amy Stevens. And also, who was the other one? Betty Boyd?
Betty Boyd.
Betty Boyd. They were the co-sponsors on this bill. It was supposed to protect Coloradoans because you can't implement Obamacare. It can come through the state unless you had the exchange. And then it came through the state. Am I correct?
You are absolutely right. How is this a firewall? That's a deception. Maybe they believed it was a firewall. But how is an exchange that is going to be like a freight train to push through Obamacare and make the state of Colorado responsible for those costs? How is that a firewall to protect us?
Well, just to have everybody understand what's kind of going on here, that happens to also be an opponent, right? Ken, she is running for U.S. Senate. Amy Stevens is running for U.S. Senate, and she is running she's primarying as well as to run on a Republican ticket.
And she's also stating that she's against Obamacare, but she's one of the reasons why we have Obamacare in this state. So I find that quite ironic.
We do. And in Common Sense News, we do have interviews this month with our U.S. Senate candidates. And everybody has agreed to the questions, except for Representative Amy Stevens. I just wanted to put that out there and put the disclaimer out there that she refused to comment. This is serious because there are 250,000 families or people right now in Colorado that are affected by SB 11200. And this is something that we're going to have to keep trying to educate the people in Colorado to understand what it's about. Because it's not just about Obamacare. It's about bringing an exchange into our state, which was supposed to protect us against Obamacare. Was that correct? I mean,
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It is. Lana, they call it a marketplace, but that's a misnomer. The exchanges are all policies that are under Obamacare. So what it's doing, it's putting everybody in Obamacare. There is no free marketplace or exchange. Very few policies are even left. Insurers are leaving. They can't afford. The premiums are going to be so high. So everything that was hoped for health reform, actually the opposite is happening.
And Ken, how are you going to push back if you go up to the U.S. Senate?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Ken, we needed to just ask you, can you hang on with us through another segment?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then we'll come back and we'll hang through another segment and we'll have Senate candidate Ken Buck explain the answer. Thanks.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
Last week, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services revealed that only 160,000 people nationwide enrolled in Obamacare in October, and only 1/4 of those enrolled through the federal healthcare.gov website that serves 36 states. That's about 25,000 people, or less than 800 people per state. Plus, many or most of these enrollees may not be truly enrolled. HHS does not know how many of them have actually paid for coverage, and they won't know until December. They had expected 500,000 people to enroll in October. The rollout of Obamacare may be in trouble, but Democrats still have the law in place and the president in power. Refuse to enroll.
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly E-News Update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
Where there is desire, there is gonna be a flame. Where there is a flame, someone's bound to get burned. But just because
All right, we are back to Common Sense Radio. Excuse the voice today, guys. I just got over being sick this week. I have been really sick this week, so I'm on a Z-Pack and all kinds of things. But we went to break, and U.S. Senate candidate Ken Buck was asked a question about... Kenda, you want to ask your question again?
Yeah, I was wondering how you're going to push back on Obamacare. What are you going to do that Udall isn't doing?
Well, the first thing we need to do is get a majority in the Senate and have a majority in the House. And then in 2016, we need to elect a president that is a Republican and a conservative and will help us with this. But we have to defund Obamacare. That's the first step to make sure that we don't allow any more expansion and to start to roll it back. But what we ultimately need to do is to bring in private market-based solutions to Obamacare. We need to have the patient has to be the consumer, not big government and not big insurance companies, but the patient. So the patient needs to make the decision on the quality of care that they're willing to buy or buy insurance for, and the price that they're willing to pay for that care. And then the patient, just like when you go buy a car, you make a decision based on quality. I want a Mercedes, I want a Volkswagen, I want something in between. The patient has to make the decision based on what kind of quality of care that they want. And at that point, then we're going to have some discrimination in the marketplace, and we're going to have some competition in the marketplace. And that is going to drive costs down, or at least not allow them to rise at the right rate that they're rising. We have to have tort reform. We cannot allow the medical system to be changed by the legal system in the way that it's being changed right now. If you look at Texas, it's a perfect example of a state that adopted tort reform and has actually attracted OBGYNs and other professions that they needed into that state. We have to have portability of insurance, where we increase the competition for insurance across state lines. So there are a lot of market-based solutions to what's going on, but the worst thing we can do is to have a single-payer system. The worst thing we can do is to have government control of a system like this.
I've heard Democrats often say that there's an information gap with healthcare. How can a market work when there's not the same information understood by the consumer, which is the patient, as the doctor? The doctor knows best. And so how do you refute that it doesn't matter, the market still will work?
Yeah, there are many complicated marketplaces. I don't understand the tax code, but I can go to a CPA and understand enough to make a decision on a good CPA or a good accountant to help me with my tax returns. There are a lot of very complicated things that we know just enough about to be able to distinguish one set of choices from another set of choices. And really, the problem with big government is it takes away personal accountability. It has to be on the patient to make those decisions. When we say it's not on you, then all of a sudden people don't have skin in the game and they don't care as much. They don't care as much about taking care of themselves before they need to see a doctor, and they don't care as much about rehabbing themselves after they've seen a doctor. And that's not the best plan for health.
Ken, how can people get a hold of you? How can voters get a hold of you?
Now, did you want to endorse tonight, or did you want to wait? 'Cause if you want, we'll put it right up on the website, which is at buckforcolorado.com, BUCKFOR Colorado.com. And we'd love to have people sign up to volunteer. We'd love to have people get our emails. We sent out a great email yesterday about Mark Udall, the high jumper. For 200 years, we've had a filibuster in the United States Senate to put a brake on the House, and yet Mark Udall, after President Obama says jump, all he does is ask how high.
Well, you know how much I love you and Perry, and how are the kids?
Kids are great. Cody is at Fort Riley and serving our country. I'm very proud of him. He is a first lieutenant now, waiting for deployment. He should be probably deployed sometime in December or January. And my daughter Caitlin has graduated from Clemson University and is a business executive in Denver. And I'm going to be spending a week vacation with her very soon, and I'm very happy about that. Perry and I will be. Yeah.
That's so great. I know, because it's coming up Thanksgiving. It's about family and about thanking God for our blessings, and we got to remember that this week, going into this week.
I have a philosophical question for you before you go. I wanted to ask you what you thought about the following statement. It's best for politicians to do the least.
Well, I disagree with that, and I agree with that. There's a political answer for you, isn't it? I agree that it is best for government to do the least that it can do. I think politicians have to be problem solvers, and good policymakers roll up their sleeves and get involved. Sometimes that is helping private businesses to flourish in the sense that we could lower the corporate tax rate. I don't want to keep the corporate tax rate where it is, so that is doing something would be to lower the corporate tax rate, but it would allow our private sector to really flourish. So I think that while government should do less, I think that a good policy person has a lot to do if they're serious about their job.
That's awesome. Buck for Colorado. It's BUCKFOR Colorado.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Buck for Colorado. If you want to find out more, we have an interview in Common Sense News this month for with Ken Buck as well. Perry, do you want to leave us with anything?
No, it's going to be interesting this next year. It just doesn't seem that. How can I say? It doesn't seem balanced in the legislature right now. We have a Democratic House, Democratic Senate, Democratic governor.
Just by one, though, in the Senate.
Yes, just by one. And it's just difficult because our voices don't seem to be heard, and the rural voices are not being heard. So it's difficult. I can just ask for prayers.
We always send you guys prayers up there. We know that you're the minority. And Perry, you just make us so proud up there.
Wow.
Being one of the most conservative legislators up there, you and Lori Sane and Vicky Marble, and we just love you guys. And
Well,
Justin
thank you.
Everett, and I mean the list goes on.
Yes, thank you.
Of the conservative ones. There's the ones that are not so conservative that make us kind of, a little bit pull our hair out and stuff up there. But we're praying for you guys up there for being the minority. And
thank
we're
you.
going to work hard to bring back 2014.
Thank you so much. And really, thanks for the opportunity of being on the radio.
Oh, I'm so glad. Ken, I'm so glad that you came on the show with us today. Thanks. You are so busy. You're actually on your way up to Woodland Park right now to Teller County.
We are. And thank you for having us on. Candace, great to see you. Dr. Mary, great to see you again, too.
Thank you so much.
So buckforcolorado.com. That's buckforcolorado.com. And if you're up in Woodland Park or up in Teller County, go up and see Ken. He's going to be at the Hungry Bear restaurant. We said that was probably the only restaurant up there. There's other ones up there, but the Hungry Bear is awesome. So go up there and see Ken Buck for U.S. Senate. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wonder Woman.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
Last year, nearly 2,000 doctors could not practice medicine because there was no residency training programs open to them. The U.S. already has a shortage of 16,000 doctors, despite 17 new medical schools and 7,000 more doctors being trained each year as a result. But many may not be able to practice because they can't find residency training. One physician in training blames decreased federal spending and warns that a $11 billion budget cut has been proposed. But here's the question. Why is the federal government involved in medical training, and how much less expensive and more accessible could medical school and training be if it wasn't?
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly E-News Update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
And we're back to Common Sense Radio. Wasn't that nice? I mean, to have Ken Buck and Perry Buck in studio with us. They're just such wonderful people. Wanted to just tell you guys, don't forget, Common Sense News is out. It is out. It'll start hitting racks on Monday. You can, the subscribers have already got theirs. It is at commonsensenewsusa.com. The website again is commonsensenewsusa.com. We have featured Dr. Mary in this latest issue. And now we're going to turn it right on over to Candace Kayla for Canda's Corner.
Next week, we are celebrating the holiday of Thanksgiving. Many Americans come together and share with each other what they are thankful for in their lives. Several of those expressions of thankfulness are rooted in concepts of security, predictability, and justice. True prosperity, in the form of good health and wealth for individuals and their families, seldom happens without security, predictability, and justice. Every American expects that government would be the first protector of those three concepts. But in 2013, we found out of control government at all levels, full of elitists that wish to recast and redesign America at the expense of those individual liberties that are at the foundation of true prosperity. Falling for the rhetoric of safety over the principles of liberty, they end up providing neither. The creation and accumulation of wealth is one measure of prosperity. Sadly, look at both the injustice and unpredictability that the government injects into our yearly incomes. Take, for example, the cash in your wallet or your savings account. Both are losing value as I speak. The federal government's reckless monetary policy is crippling the value of the dollar that once was very secure not only for us as Americans, but for the rest of the world as well. On the other side, those fat gains in your 401k that you are seeing this year are made unstable by government tinkering with the economy and could disappear in a flash. And with heavy government taxation schemes like Obamacare and our very own Referendum C here in Colorado, how can Americans plan for the future? In fact, this holiday, we are more likely to be thankful for what the government didn't do for us. Are you thankful for a doctor this year whose care and expertise either saved your life or cured you or a loved one of a bad illness? The federal and Colorado state governments are now in collusion to ensure that you pay more for your health care and decrease your access to all the bells and whistles that we have taken for granted as the foundation of good health care. Next year, that doctor that helped you this year may simply stop practicing in the face of government regulations or be absorbed into a hospital that ties your hands or their hands as to the wonders that they can perform. Or, if you are of an age where you use Medicare, that beloved doctor may simply cease to take Medicare patients next year due to the onerous costs of doing so. Those are the fruits of government logic, of you doing with less so others can have more. And perhaps you got a job this year after desperately searching for one. Congratulations! But it is important to think. Did you get that job because you were the best qualified or because you were a protected class of citizen? Or did you lose a job because you didn't fall into the category of protected class of citizen even though you were best qualified? What happened to a government that protected equality under the law? Have governments at every level only rekindled the fires of hate that heat prejudicial behavior based on race or other preferred traits? How would the great and noble Martin Luther King Jr. view the policies of government today? Would he see progress or regression? I often think of the ironic fact that Frederick Douglass or Martin Luther King Jr. would have had more in common with Thomas Jefferson than they would have in common with race peddlers like Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson. Mothers, I ask you to look at your children and question whether you want your government to put your children in boxes based on skin color or another physical trait. Or do you want them to be judged by the content of their character? We have to question in America whether every child has equal access to the opportunity and the means to be prosperous. Many want to put the best face on for Thanksgiving and dig in their hearts for those items for which to be most thankful. However, I fear this Thanksgiving that side conversations in front of the TV while watching a favorite football game or perhaps the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, or in a quick moment while passing the potatoes to a loved one at the dining table, will be full of dread about the abuses the government will perpetuate against their prosperity in 2014. Folks, you know that government is doing its best and is in check when you don't have to think about what government is doing. I have a vision for America where the Thanksgiving table is full of tales of prosperity and hope. I pray that there are so many that there is not time during the celebration for friends and loved ones to regale them all. I pray our future is filled without the dread of government, but a feeling of empowerment to control it and be at the whim of the people instead of the reverse. Fight for your country, fellow Americans. Fight for your liberties. And government will be tamed, and true prosperity will surely follow. And those are my considerations in Candace Corner.
Thank you, Canda. That was amazing. Thanksgiving is fast approaching, and it ties everything in together. And our Christmas edition coming out right now, that's actually out on the shelves is our Christmas edition. We're doing that on purpose. We're not going to be PC anymore. We're not going to sit back and say, you know what? We're going to have to say happy holidays or happy winter party or season's greetings. No, we're going to say Merry Christmas. It is what it is, and it is Christmas. And we're going to push back on what they're doing. So, Dr. Mary, what do you think?
Thank you so much, Lana. And I want to thank everybody. I heard the comments earlier. The concern about the quality or lack of quality in our healthcare is just absolutely frightening. People talk about this Obamacare like it's the best thing since sliced bread. It is a disaster waiting to happen. And the truth is, doctors have nothing to say anymore. Doctors have been factored out of the healthcare equation, along with the patients. It's all about bureaucracy, regulation, profit making at the highest levels of government corporate lobbies at the expense of the people.
This is just, it's sad. We talked about at our meeting, because you were also our guest speaker at the Colorado Springs Republican Women's meeting last Tuesday. And I had told you I had gone in for my echocardiogram, my yearly echocardiogram. And I had to literally print out a piece of paper that I'm going to have to go get notarized and sent to 2 different departments, one to the state and one to somebody else, that opts me out of getting into this database. Otherwise, I'm stuck. I'm in this database.
Lana, and it's critical that each one of our listeners understands that they also need to opt out of this database. There is a website. It is www.corhio.org, corhio.org. This is an elaborate database that is part of Obamacare. What it means is our medical data, when we go to the doctor, or our lab values, are shared with whoever wants them. If they've got the bureaucracy, regulations, or if they're health providers, we need to say no and opt out.
Well, we'll come back and talk about that as soon as we go to a break. That is a perfect part where we can actually jump right back in the next segment. So join us when we come back. Common Sense Radio.
From her silky long hair to her sexy long legs, my baby is American made.
News Talk 1460, KZNT.
A fabulous Village 7 coffee location has reopened. The Copper Creek is back as Mountain Grounds Coffee House at 3315 West Carefree Circle. Mountain Grounds Coffee House features the aroma and comfort of European cafes. But it gets better. At Mountain Grounds Coffee House, the beans are locally roasted, the flavored syrups are all natural, and fruit flavorings are homemade, while the pastries are fresh daily from a local pastry and cake shop. How about a fresh vanilla, almond, or hazelnut latte, prepared with Umpire Estate Mountain Roasters beans? For atmosphere, Mountain Grounds Coffee House features free Wi-Fi and big band swing and track records played on a real record player. Feel free to bring your own vinyl. Mountain Grounds Coffee House is now open at 3315 West Carefree Circle. Fresh coffee, new ownership, a coffee experience. Mountain Grounds Coffee House.
In the year 1621, the Pilgrims held their first Thanksgiving feast. They invited the great Indian chief, Massasoit, who brought 90 of his brave Indians and a great abundance of food. Governor William Bradford and Captain Miles Standish were honored guests. Elder William Brewster, who was a minister, said a prayer that went something like this: "We thank God for our homes and our food and our safety in a new land. We thank God for the opportunity to create a new world for freedom and justice. Amen."
And amen to that.
Hallelujah.
I know. Charlie Brown. Amen. We thank God for our blessings and we thank God for our families. And as we're going into Thanksgiving week, we need to remember those that are in need or that are suffering at this time and be with them. And Lord, thank you again for all that you've given us. So Dr. Mary, let's continue on this talk about Obamacare, SB 11200, which is our state exchange, and kind of go on a little bit more about that.
We talked a little bit earlier about opting out, and the question's going to be raised. Well, don't we want other doctors and hospitals to have our data? The question is, do we need to have all these bureaucrats, unelected bureaucrats, politicians, the IRS? They have proven over and over that they are doing nothing good with that data. So the answer is, of course we want our doctors to have that information. But for now, the system is so broken, we have to opt out of the exchange. The government established rules, and we said, we'll have our own medical records, we'll get copies, and we will share them ourselves. I want the audience to understand what we're saying here. It's getting that data in the wrong hands that is putting everyone at risk.
So what should our listeners do right now? What should be the first action item? Like, what should be the first thing that they do? Go to this website.
The first thing they do is go to this website. And we said one more time, www.corhio.org. And follow the instructions to opt out. You actually have to print something out, get it notarized, and send it to the office in Denver. It is worth it.
And so they want you to go out of your way to have to go through so many things so that you don't do it. And then if you don't opt out, you're automatically in.
Absolutely.
Now, here is my research that I've uncovered that in, I think it was 2010, Amy Stevens had ushered in a sharing of this information with our state already. And then she extended it in 2011 to the Obamacare, where now we are sharing all our medical data with the national government. Why would someone who says they're against Obamacare ever think it's a good idea to share data in the first place, even before Obamacare came about, and then now with Obamacare?
Kanda, absolutely. It makes absolutely no sense. And I have no idea. But it's obvious that they do not understand. And in terms of Amy Stevens, if she understood, because I have heard her say, I'm totally against Obamacare. Wherever she got this information, it is such a deception. Mm-hmm. It is such a delusion. And we, the people at this point, need to stand and just say no and believe that we're going to get top people in office who are going to repeal all of this.
And understand the laws that they're making.
Exactly. Now, speaking of capitalism and cronyism, we're also, we had requested a Cora request on the City for Champions proposal from Mayor Steve Bach's office. And we did print the letter. It's in the most recent Common Sense News. And it is, we reached out to Mayor Bach's office and he has not responded. Make sure you pick up your issue of Common Sense News USA.com. We're at all the King Supers. We're at 1,500 locations starting next Monday. Please pick up your issue and follow us and join us next week as we continue the debate on City for Champions on November 30th, right in time for the RTA hearing on December 4th.